как она своими смешными вопросиками разбавляет немного.
Well, it looks fine to me, except for the fact that the uppermost part, like that,
Maybe a bit up.
and maybe a bit up.
Right.
Yeah,
The better.
much better.
Good. So, do you press the magic button?
I've already pressed it.
Oh,
so
good.
the
Very
most
good.
the most technical part of recorded.
Because it's always interesting to see what's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Okay. So today is a big holiday in China. Because today we have the Chinese New Year starting tonight.
Okay.
And that's going to be white rat year.
Really?
Yeah, so the rat is the first one in the cycle. We have 12 years. Each year has its special qualities,
Okay.
special animals. And the rat is the first one because it's the biggest animal ever. Yeah. So
The biggest.
the biggest. There are different sources how it is that the rat is the first one to come.
Okay.
One is that the rat was so quick, it came first to Buddha when he was doing the calendar. Oh, you're so quick, you'll be the first one. Another version is, so you have the ox, who's obviously very big. You have the dragon, but the dragon doesn't really care, because he's very cool anyway. So you have the ox, and the ox says, well, I'm the biggest animal, I have to be the first one. Oh, you're the biggest animal? Yeah. And so the mouse or the rat says, no, I'm the biggest animal, I can prove it. Oh yeah, says the ox. Oh yeah, says the rat, let's go to the village and see what people say. Okay, you silly little thing. And so what the rat did, it climbed onto the ox's back.
Okay.
And they came into the village. And people were seeing the ox, but it was just an ox. And they were like, it's a nice ox, it's a beautiful ox. And nobody would say, what a big ox. Because oxes are big anyway, so it's not surprising. But the mouse or the rat sat on the ox's back and puffed itself up. And everyone said, oh, what a huge rat! You see, said the rat, I'm the biggest. That's another story of how the rat came to be the first one. But I believe if you look deeper into the meaning, if you take it as alchemy, when nothing is what it seems, but more like a symbol, maybe you find answers there. So, who is the rat? What is the rat? Why is it the first one? Well, anyway, I found some poems related to mice and rats and rodents. I really liked this one. Well, the classical mouse poem is obviously Robert Burns, but we read it sometime last year, or this year, last year, which is this year, academic year. Well, anyway, we read it. So today we have something else, and personally I have some Chinese tea to celebrate the date.
Okay.
We have some
Chinese biscuits.
Yeah, that's a sun biscuit, and you have it in the moon biscuit. So that's our celebration today. And we have
So if I eat all the biscuits here, no one will object to it.
No.
To me eating all the biscuits.
Because you're celebrating.
Because I'm celebrating.
Yeah.
Because I look like the rat.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let's read it. It's called Shelter. I have forgotten to turn the recorder on again. Well, anyway, it was just the introduction to the read here. Shelter by Charles Stuart Calverley. I have no idea how to spell it. Calverley. Well, anyway. Calverley.
Okay.
By the wide lake's margin I marked a line. The wide weary lake where the alders sigh A young fair thing with a shy soft eye, and I deemed that her thoughts had flown to her home and her brethren and sisters dear, as she lay there watching the dark deep mere, all motionless, all alone. Then I heard a noise as of men and boys, a boisterous troop drew nigh. With a now will retreat those fairy fate, where high till the storm passed by. One glance, the wild glance of a hunted thing, she cast behind her, she gave one spring, and there followed a splash and a broadening ring of the lake where the alders sigh. She had gone from the ken of ungentle men, yet scarce did they mourn for that, for I knew she was safe in her own home then, and the danger past would appear again, for she was a water rat. Ah, isn't it fantastic? It's fantastic in many ways. So what do you think about it? How do you take it?
Well, it's very serious in the beginning, and I only realized that Charles Stuart Calverley something is playing a joke with me when I read the last line. I do suspect something is not as it looks, but the final line tells on the top. So it's really funny to sort of produce what might be seen as a love poetry, and then end it by saying she
was a water rat.
was a water rat, fair, shy, soft eyes,
like a fairy.
like a fairy, young.
So what happens here? Well, technically, of course, this year in China is metallic red. So we have water red. Yeah, because we have these qualities like wood and water and metal and earth.
Which means that they not only rotate the years, but they also rotate the colors.
The quality, yeah. So it's like the color and the element.
Okay.
So each year you have a new one. So 12 years is called the big year from the same animal, let's say to the same animal. And then you have the mega giga super duper year from the same animal with the same quality, the same animal with the same quality, which would be what, 60 years?
5 cycles.
We have 5 elements.
5. Do we?
We do. It's like fire, water, metal, wood and earth. So 5 elements
I
and
thought
12.
there were many, you know this.
Oh, that's basic elements.
A table.
That's
a table,
basic
something
elements.
that they have elements, but I was never able to master it.
Oh, you just say we have 5 elements.
Yeah, 5 is enough.
5 is more than enough. So anyway. So that's
So this year is metallic.
Yeah, metallic, which is white.
Which is white.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is of course
this
another
is
element, water rat.
Do we have fire rats?
I don't know. Does it look like?
That's not a rat. That's a bird.
Okay. A bird can be a rat.
But not today. Okay, so we have this amazing little poem, and that guy, whether his name is spelled, he is famous for his ironic parodies, or that kind of poetry, a bit absurd maybe.
Yeah, so this is an example.
That's one of the examples. But what happens here is I don't believe him. He means to write a parody. And we may see it as a parody, but he does it so deeply that it stops being a parody in spite of his tries. in spite of his efforts.
Okay. So if he had an intention of making a parody, maybe he thought, maybe he had two ideas, one of which was a parody and the other was being quite serious. Because very often when you make people laugh, when you make people curious about something they don't understand and think it's funny, you can also tell them some serious truths.
Yeah. So we now enter this beautiful so-called quantum age. Then nothing is fixed. And it's one of the crazy occurrences in quantum physics when you have two different states at the same time, and it's not a problem.
Are we entering it today?
Oh, we have entered it a long time ago, 2012, most people would say.
Oh.
Well, it's kind of developing.
I missed the most important thing.
Because it's not a thing.
It's not a
It's
thing.
a no thing.
It's a new
It's a
thing.
no thing.
Yeah, so both qualities
So they're both
might be
correct,
present.
both present,
Yeah.
both actual. Same as in...
Is it like Hegel?
Yeah, a
Dialectic?
little bit. A little bit.
Because I think his main idea was that everything, thing has this contradiction about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't really avoid that.
You can't avoid it. Any system has contradictions inside it. If you expand the system to include that contradiction, you just have another contradiction appearing. Yeah, exactly. It's all connected with Gödel and all other guys.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, what we have now is really amazing. You have different versions of history,
Thank you.
different versions of
I don't.
reality. I'm not saying they're correct or not correct. You have them, and people who produce them have their points.
I don't.
Well, some people say that our history is much shorter than believed. Other people say our history is much longer than believed. Some people say we live on flat Earth. Some people say we live on a whole Earth. Some people say something else. And they all have their point. It's all true. Some people say there are aliens. Some people say there are no aliens. And it's all true at the same time.
Some people say they are not people but aliens.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's amazing that we have this poem, which is not a very modern poem, but which comes to us today. And it's an amazing representation of this very idea. A boisterous troop. It's really good. So now some people say, there had never been nuclear bombs. Some people say it's all like normal kind of bombs, but just lots of them. I mean, what they say is, if you had nuclear bombs in Hiroshima, then how come it's inhabited? I mean, consider Chernobyl. Nobody can live there because of radiation. Now look at the Japanese cities. You say they were nuclear bombed. Where's the radiation? And how come the hospital inside the city, how come it was working all the time? It doesn't make sense. Well, anyway, now history goes wobbling, everything goes wobbling, it's beautiful. And what happens here again is shimmering, glimmering, changing from one state to another.
No truth.
Oh, it's all true. It's all true.
Well, if
that
it's
is
all
true. And
if
that
it's
is
all
true.
then nothing is true.
No, that is true and that is true. Let's say an apple can be big or an apple can be green. That's true and that's true. Okay? Or you can have an apple which is green here and yellow here. And you can say it's green, it's yellow. That's true. You have the front, you have the back. It's opposite, but it's true. Okay. So, why do we not quite believe him when he says, it's just a joke, it's just a water rat?
Because the questions raised there in the poem are much more serious than just an innocent joke or something. We see someone who, according to the rules of the joke, first might be a human being.
Human. Is she human?
Who might be a beautiful lady, someone who attracts our poet's attention, and he falls in love with her or something, and the situation in which she finds herself is she's being hunted. And again, we find out in the last line that she was a water rat, but we can clearly sympathize with her. We can easily feel the feelings she has when being hunted, when being persecuted, when there are lots and lots and lots of angry and aggressive people, an aggressive crowd, which is probably boys. And again, boys might be, I think, we'll come back to that later, but the idea is that a noise as of men and boys, so they are not just men and boys, individual men, individual boys. It's a troop, it's a crowd, it's a unity, which is aggressive and which only exists as and against all that huge crowd of boys, men, whatever, there's a very delicate she who's trying to avoid who's trying to escape the persecutors or something, and that is probably the thing that many of us can sympathize with, not because they were hunters holding their rifles trying to fire at us, not necessarily that, but the word alone that appears in the poem and the feeling of being alone, all alone against a crowd which might be aggressive, or at least which might be very careless, they probably don't care about her, is something we can sympathize with. And in fact, they don't care about her because their idea is just to hunt and kill water rats, maybe birds, maybe somebody else. Whereas we discover that she has her own soul, so to speak. She can be afraid, but she can also be beautiful. She can also have certain ideas. So she's not just a thing, you say, a thing that has certain technical characteristics. She is...
It's still flashing.
Maybe it's just because they want to... they want to close up. So she isn't a thing with certain technical features.
Although, if you look at the poem, then that's what the poet calls her, thing. 2 times.
And maybe, as you say, we don't really believe him. Maybe, as he calls her, thing, we don't really believe. He thinks she is a thing. Again, because this is English, I think it is probably much more natural, I might say something more natural than, for example, in Russian.
No, you say thing, it's normal when you don't want to
it's like a sort of a pronoun.
For everything.
It's sort of a pronoun.
Still, it's like a thing.
Yes. On the other hand, they also use, maybe even today, or they used to say, "Oh, you poor little thing."
So thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
To say thing is normal, but not when you're aware of it. If you're aware of it, you will never say thing about a person.
Yeah, and the poet is obviously aware of it, and yet he uses the word thing. Why?
Yeah, and speaking, maybe that's how he hints that it's not really a human being. Then another thing, as we started speaking about English language.
As we started to speak English, or at least I'm trying to sound a bit.
Yeah, unlike many languages, we don't have a he and she in English for anyone, anything that is not a girl or a boy biologically. So again, when you use she in the poem, it automatically, for an English reader, it automatically makes an image of a female human being or human-like being.
Yeah.
Because you don't normally talk about animals as he or she.
No. And then suddenly he sort of plays on the contrasting the word she, the pronoun, and the word thing, which also functions as a pronoun of some sort. Probably, as you say, using it as a means to draw our attention to the fact that she's not a thing. A thing is something.
Maybe she's a thing for the hunters.
Yes, for the hunters. That's probably how they perceive her. And they are never supposed. They are never supposed to say she about a rat. It.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what happens here? Apart from calling her she, he creates a classical fairy image. There's a classical setting, classical attributes, a classical story.
About fairies.
About fairies.
Okay.
So when he comes to the end, and he says, "Oh, she was a water rat." What happens? All the while we've been imagining a young girl. Now suddenly she becomes a water rat, and that's literally what happens. A girl turns into a water rat.
Yeah, which is possible for
a fairy. A fairy can be a girl, can be a water rat, because fairies, unlike humans, are made, it concerns us too, but we're not really aware of it, so we can't do much about it. The appearance is made of, let's say, solid light, more like a hologram, maybe. Yeah. So they can change it. More than that, how a fairy looks very often in most mythologies reflects the inner state. So if it's a good fairy, she looks beautiful. If it's an angry fairy, she looks ugly. Not the other way around. Yeah. So for humans today, they're like, no, what about, how do you call it, politically correct, socially correct? Well, anyway, so if she's ugly, it means she's horrible. No, let's have some stories of ugly, horrible witches who are really kind of nice. That works in a human mind, a human society. It doesn't always work with fairies, because it's really just showing who you are, the appearance.
Okay, can you please explain to someone who has never met a fairy? Never.
Oh dear. Yeah.
What are these traditional elements, fairy-like elements?
Have a look at it.
Okay,
Have a look
good.
at it. So what I'm saying is, on one hand, again, you can see it differently. On one hand, it might be that a normal water rat, which usually is not much interesting, is interesting for a poet to the extent that he can see this whole story developing behind that rat. Because if you're a poet, then everything is interesting to you. Everything is alive, because it's not a thing. everything is not a thing. And a water rat is a princess or a fairy, or has a story of her own, and you can see that it's a girl, and you can see this whole plot behind it. That's one way of saying it. Another way of saying it is that is a fairy who turns into a water rat. And then, again, what happens as you read the poem, the same as if we were watching this scene with a girl turned into water rat. More troops, more boisterous troops. Okay, what happens is we rewrite in our memory this whole story, and now we think, it can't be, it doesn't happen in real life. What do we know about real life? It doesn't happen in real life. Girls don't turn into water rats, so it was a water rat from the beginning. And now we look at it again and we think, I read about the water rat from the beginning. You didn't. You never did. You read about the girl who turned into a water rat in the end. Right? So that's what happens when you read a poem. Same happens when you see something strange. You rewrite your memories. But it still exists in two versions.
It's like huge for my grandmother.
Yay! It's good to make people happy. Okay, now the camera is happy.
So far.
So what are the classical images do we have here? The first is the setting. What is the setting?
A lake.
So lake immediately is a fairy place. We have the lady of the lake, we have the lake poets. Water is fairy. Still water like a lake is a place where water fairies live. They like water. Is it a normal lake?
Well, it's weird, he says.
Why
Which is
weird?
Probably not normal.
So why would a lake be weird? If you see a lake, what would make you call it weird?
Something in the air.
Yeah, maybe. So why weird? And again, note that when we have these descriptions, we have two adjectives all the time. We have wide, weird lake, young, fair thing, shy, soft eye, Brethren and sisters, dark, deep, mere, motionless, alone, men and boys, two, or where was it? Something else? Yeah. So we have this ambiguity. We have this double version, double vision. Yeah.
Okay.
Wide, weird. Two, young, fair. And the meaning: fairy, water rat, parody, or a fairy story. So that's one thing to start with. We have the lake, immediately magical. Because lake is like wisdom, water is like wisdom, and the sea is great wisdom. A lake is big wisdom too. I mean, look at Loch Ness. Nobody knows what's in there. Then we have the older sigh. Okay, oldest. Still had the camera? Olders. On one
It just
hand,
responds to the word alders.
so on one hand it's a tree, and it makes this sighing noise, so that could be normal. At the same time, older, as you can hear, is connected with old, again wise. So an older is a special tree connected with wisdom again.
Yeah, and maybe the fact that this sigh is also something connected with being old. You are old, you sigh quite often. On the other hand, good morning, good morning.
Good morning. Do you press the button? Yeah, you did. You did.
I did.
So it's not just a lake with important trees around, all the trees. Also, it's the margin. He says the word margin.
Yeah, by the Wide Lakes margin.
So margin is the border between reality. It says here you have the forest or the human world. Not really human, but it's on land. It's more human. And there you have the lake, which is a fairy realm. Yeah. And she's in between. So you can see, you may see her as a fairy who had come to the human world, but who is not sure whether she should stay on the human side or maybe go back to the fairy side. So she's in between. She might be human, she might be a fairy. She's neither here nor there, which again
Sitting
is a
on the
very
fence.
magical position. Very magical position. And again, that's the same as we talked about earlier. That, double.
Yeah, but when I come to read it as love poetry, I might be tempted.
Maybe like romantic
Poetry. Well, romantic. Aren't lakes also a necessary element in, well, not a necessary, but an obvious element in many romantic poems?
Too, yes.
Yeah, so it might also connect us, as you say, it connects us, one of the connections is to the fairy world.
Another is to romantic poetry.
Yeah.
We connect it more with the fairy side because she turns into a water rat in the end. But if we ignore it, then yeah, again, it's a classical romantic story. A girl hunted by man, and she has no other way but to drown herself in the nearest body of water.
Yeah.
What do they say about the famous lake in Russia? The girls can't drown themselves. Like there's plenty of space. Come girls, come here. Okay. By the Wide Lakes margin, I marked her light. Again, if you listen to the sounds, they're doubling again. Margin, marked her line. The wide lie. Like maybe like I'm telling you a lie. I'm telling you a story, but it's not really true to the end. The wide weird lake where all the sighs, all the trees are alive, they're sighing, they know something. A young fair thing. So young, good. Fair like fairy.
Yeah.
So we have again this double meaning, fair like beautiful and fair like fairy. Then he calls her a thing. Like, well, I never called her a girl. I said thing. Yeah. So it's like the rule of the game. You can be fishy, you can play with it, but you can't tell a straightforward lie. Yeah. You can say a thing and then say, well, I didn't say it was a girl. Because a thing can be anything. A young fair thing with a shy, soft eye. So that's what makes her human or human-like, because if you look into the eye of an animal, then in most cases, for most people, it's like, nah, nothing, they're stupid.
Oh, if you look into into animals' eyes, it can also produce some response from them. And one obvious response that I often get, maybe I shouldn't look into animal eyes, but an obvious response, the cats who reside in they run away. So they look at you, they might be looking at you from a safe distance where that's okay. And if it's...
Well, if you want to experiment, you may look into a dog's eye and then see if it runs away or bites you.
Well, maybe yes, that would be a good idea.
Well, anyway, here we look straight into the eyes of this young fair someone. And we don't usually do that with animals.
We don't.
So shy and soft and young and fair, all these words in one line, and you have fair and soft, which are themselves soft and thin and shy, or soft sounds. After the wide, weird lake where the oldest sigh, and then yeah, we play with it, we change it, we change the register. The shy soft I. And I deemed that her thoughts had flown to her home, again, flown home, and her brethren and sisters dear. So again, it's a classical image of a lonely fairy who maybe has lost her power to change back into a fairy. You know the usual stories that her magical maybe coat or wings or skin is stolen by a man and she has to be his wife, and then she finds her skin and returns to her sisters. So that separation of a single fairy from a group of sister fairies, again, is really, really classical. Yeah? So she's away from home, she's away from her kind, her brethren, and dear sisters. So how do we feel about it?
Yes. And again, she's alone. Which rhymes with flown. All alone, he says in the last line of stanza 1. This is probably a necessary element of a romantic poem.
Yeah, being alone.
Being alone, it might be a man who is alone against the evil world, and I think that's, I might be mistaken, but that's probably what romanticism
is all about.
To Byron, for example. But here there's a reversal of the roles, because she is alone against the aggressive evil
Well,
world.
it doesn't matter if it's a he or a she.
Yeah.
The hero,
stands
the
alone.
character is different. Nobody understands him or her, and he or she is opposed to the rest of the world, which is what we have here.
Yeah, and nobody
Separation.
understands, nobody understands either Byron with his ideas, being very smart man. Nobody understands her here.
Except for the I, the narrator, because I can see her lying there, I understand her thoughts, I deem that her thoughts had flown, I connect with her, I know how she feels, we become one, she and I, there's no difference. Thoughts, breath and flow, again connected with water, and flowing, and the flow as in the flow of meaning. Now it's here, now it's there, now she's a fairy, now she's a girl, now she's a water rat. It's all flowing, it's not stable. Yeah. Shy soft I had flown. Sisters dear, yeah, again, first you think about fairies, because it's a really, really classical element in fairy telling. As she lay there watching the dark, deep mere, all motionless, all alone. Now, what is she doing there?
We don't know.
She's watching. We often see young girls lying on the margin of a lake, looking into dark, deep mere, meaning lake. Again, a fun word here, mere.
It's like German mare, maybe the same origin.
Mare.
Like that's Latin. Yeah.
So, or maybe it's like murky, maybe like mud.
Maybe like nothing.
No.
A mere thing.
Mere like nothing. So again, we have this play of ideas, because mere, on one hand, it sounds quite dark, if you think about water. At the same time, it means like simple, mere. but it's dark and deep. Again, dark, deep. It's all in the sound. So why would you be watching the dark, deep water? If you can't see anything in it, it's dark and deep. Why are you watching it?
Well, she might see something I can't see in the water. She might be trying to connect to her sisters who are inside in the lake. And again, as you said, the lake is magical and it's their world. The rest of the world is not really magical, but rather aggressive and evil. And she finds herself on the margin. Again, she probably wants to reunite with her sisters, but speaking of dialect or something, she might also feel attachment to the world here, to the world as I see it. So she's torn between these two worlds, and this is expressed in the description that
also maybe it's to reflect her state, dark and deep. Her thoughts are dark and deep because, like we say, water, lake is like wisdom, and water is dark and deep. Something that we don't understand at the moment. We call it dark, like dark matter, so-called, or black stars, black holes, so-called, because they never existed.
And again, is she alive? Because she is all alone, like a stone, motionless, like a stone. So she might be a statue just as well.
According to him, her thoughts are flowing, so there is movement, but it's inward, in the movement. Again, as you look from the side, you may not know, you may not see it, but if you're a poet, you can connect telepathically or empathically.
Yes.
Then you know that no, she's not dead, she's not asleep, she is deep in her thoughts. There's something she's trying to see in that water, which is dark and deep. And maybe it's dark and deep for humans, not for her, like you said.
It's like, it's like there's constant motion, as we know, or at least as we think we know. But we don't really see it. We see something stable, and only special means allow scientists to see the constant motion of molecules or the way atoms compose of.
The molecules move really nicely in a cup of hot tea.
Yes, which means tea time.
Tea time. If you pause it for a second. If I pause that for a second.
Again.
Okay.
It's working.
Working good. So this first stanza is one of stillness. She's lying there deep in thought, and he's watching her. Again, kind of in secret. Yeah. And just now we see this weird scene paused. There's a pause. So we now need to break that silence, that stillness, and we do it quite violently. So to break it, you need to create it. We create it first. Now we can break it. Then I heard the noises of men and boys. Yeah. The suspense is broken. I heard the noise of men and boys. Oh, noise, noise. We don't like noise after this stillness.
Yeah, we don't like boys.
Again, boys and boisterous. We have all these little alliterations and things inside the text which we may not see when we read by, like flown and home, now boys and boisterous. So a boisterous troop is a troop full of boys, in this case. Yeah. Again, a boisterous sounds a little bit like a blister to me. a bit annoying. Drew, nay, nay, no. I heard the note of a man and boys in a boisterous troop drew nigh. Oh no, like you say, we have this big aggressive troop against this fragile little her.
Yeah, and probably this is underscored by the fact the poet uses the word troop rather than troops, which is probably much more common today.
Troop like a body.
Yeah, so it means that it's a single
File.
Yes, rather than
Again, if you talk about the troop, makes you think of military, of soldiers against someone rude, not really gentle and polite. And if it's just a company of men and boys, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe they just want to have a picnic.
Yeah, and
if it's a boisterous troop, it's bad news. Whither will retreat those fairy feet, where hide till the storm pass by? So it's really kind of funny, because if you imagine the situation, it doesn't matter if it's a rat or a girl. It's like, oh, she's in trouble, now what happens next? And he's just watching. No, I'm not going to help her, I'm just watching. I'm just a poet, you know. No responsibility, just watching.
nothing.
Not interfering. You know, it's against the great law of time and time travel and power. You do not interfere. If you have great power, you never interfere. You only observe. If you're a poet, that's what you do. And the boisterous children, whither now will retreat those fairy feet. Again, we have the sounds. Whither, will, and fairy feet, and whining. Whither. Not where, but whither. Where hide till the storm pass by. So now the truth becomes as big as a natural disaster, like a storm, and you need to hide from it. But when they come and go, they are very straightforward. Yeah? And fairy feet, isn't it beautiful? I think it's really beautiful. So we again repeat the word fair thing in the beginning, fairy feet now.
Yeah, and fairy clearly refers to fairies.
No, again, if you talk about a girl, she may have fairy feet.
Yeah.
Like very gentle and soft and small. If a fairy feet can be literal, she's a fairy. And of course, we have it all in mind as we read it.
Yeah.
Or if you talk about the water rat, that's fairy feet too, literally. Have you seen a water rat? Have you seen anything in your life?
No.
No, good. So much to discover. Great.
So little time.
Wow, is 200 years not enough for you?
200.
Okay, 300.
Oh.
300 not enough for you? Oh dear. What do you do with your life now? We'll retreat those fairy feet, where high till the storm pass by. I have my shelter. I'm standing somewhere in the bushes, watching. It's my place. I'm not letting her in.
Yeah, I'm the press. I have a special press, so I don't interfere. I just report things,
So
hunted things as they happen.
We kind of liven up the narration by those rhetorical questions. So, because now we're like...
Yeah, and again, if you want to insist on Charles Stuart, whatever, being ironic, you can also compare these questions with something that the sports commentators often say when commenting on a football match or something. Okay, so what's going on?
Not really, because he uses the word wither. Wither is a poetic word.
Yeah, which is not typical for sports journalists.
Yeah.
But still, he's distancing himself from what is happening. He's just an observer. He might be someone filming.
Again, he creates tension. In case if we don't feel it, in case if we think, well, it's just somebody passing by, he explains it to us. But no, do you understand? Now she needs to run away to hide, and there's nowhere to hide. Because she's on the shore, on the margin of a lake. She goes back, and then you have this aggressive troop. Goes forward, there's a lake, there's no way. What does she do? What does she do? Whither? Where? How? She needs to retreat and to hide. And again, troop, retreat, repeating. One glance. So now we say she doesn't have time. One glance, one short glance, the wild glance of a hunted thing. Oh, we come to the beginning. Wide, lake, weird. Now wild, all the connected words. So if her glance is wild, also it's like white and weird, connected with all this atmosphere. The wild glance of a hunted thing. So reduces her to a thing. In this case, you may say, well, if you're hunted, you don't feel like a human, you feel like a thing. And you have only those basic needs to run and hide and save your life, which is like a very basic thing. And she's hunted. Now we know that they're coming for her specifically, or maybe not specifically for her, but they're hunting.
I was thinking now about a person I know, and I think she has these contradictions about her. She might be very quick, escaping maybe, or just, and she might contemplate as our she did here. And it's really amazing to see these two contradictory forces operating in her at the same time. Something that
they're not contradictory.
But they're not contradictory. And it's interesting that they are also known to Charles Stuart, whatever his last name is.
So what happens is, if you're bright, then when you deep thinking, you don't go to sleep. Anytime you're relaxed, but you're not asleep. So anytime you're ready to spring. Yeah, so that's what happens here. It's only logical. If you're say you're asleep. You're asleep already. Well, anyway, if you sit thinking deep and then you fail to react to the immediate circumstances, then you're not bright. You're just trying to wreck your brains. You do no good. But she's
aware
flowing.
of the world outside.
She's flowing.
She's flowing.
Yeah. So she can do it. She's quick, she's small, she's soft, she's agile. One glance.
She's fair.
She's fair. The wild glance of a hunted thing. She comes behind her. She gave one spring. So one all alone, and it's all very quick.
Yeah.
She comes behind her.
Yeah. So cast is also very dynamic
hunting.
word. Yeah. And again, she glances at whom? Does she glance at the hunters? Does she glance at our?
She's about to leave.
Yeah.
Maybe the world she's
yeah. Or the world, or maybe she glances at our poet. She was aware of his existence all the time.
Maybe. And he never understood it. she gave one spring. Again, a very quick movement. Glance, very quick movement. Spring, quick movement. Again, spring is connected with water.
Yeah.
Again, in the sense of a little rivulet.
Yeah, and give is obviously give. So she pays sort of a contribution to this world, the world
Yeah,
she's
that's
leaving.
what she leaves behind.
Yeah, that's what she-
Glance and the spring.
Yeah.
And they follow the splash and the broadening ring of the lake where the oldest sun. So, if we read it as a romantic poem, then oh no, that's a classical ending. She has to kill herself to avoid all this shame and violence. And we hear the splash. We don't see her even. We hear the splash. We see the broadening ring on the lake with the oldest side. So it becomes quiet again. Although we still have those boisterous boys coming, we don't hear them now because we see something that is silent. The broadening ring is moving with silence. And we can hear the older sigh again, which means it's quiet. So we return to the beginning, but now the lake is empty. And in a normal poem, that would be the end, more or less. And that's not a normal poem, and we go on. She had gone from the can of ungentle men. So, how do you understand it?
Ungentle. Gentle probably means noble. It
like
means
gentleman.
soft. Yeah,
Like
soft,
gentleman.
which connects. Yeah, a gentleman is basically
And that is
a nobleman.
ungentleman.
Yeah. So there's nothing noble about them. And again, the word gentle, in the meaning that is often, the word gentle is connected in its meaning with the word soft, because if it's gentle, it's soft.
Yeah.
And she is soft and fair and sharp.
And she's a girl.
And she's a girl,
boys.
yeah. But they're not really boys, they are ungentle men. So again, when we talk about contradictions, that's a contradiction. We expect to have gentlemen. Instead we got ungentlemen.
And she had gone from the can of ungentleman. She had gone, again we can see like, oh, she's gone like she's dead. But she escaped to them by her death, or she had gone like just she had escaped. Then again the word can is nice in here. Why?
Why?
Why? Or what's can? Can like kind, like clan, can, kin. Yeah. So on one hand, the can of an ungentleman is like humanity in general, mankind.
Yeah.
Mankind called a man. At the same time, the word can means to know, from their knowledge.
Yeah. Can.
Can like know. If you go to Scotland, then you can say can. Oh, I can. What do you mean? So, how? From their knowledge, from their perception, from their understanding, by turning to water red, which we don't know yet. Yeah? In that sense, she escapes the reality not physically, not so much physically, but by changing her inner state. So now they perceive her as a water rat, and a water rat is not interesting for them. They're interested in a young girl, because they're boisterous boys. They're not interested in a water rat. Yeah? So she is neither a girl nor a water rat, but by changing her state, she may change her appearance. And now she is seen as a water rat. And that's how she escapes the kenning knowledge. So because they don't see her, they expect to see a girl, they don't see a girl, they don't see the rat. Because that's not what they expect to see. Not what they're looking for. Now she's safe. Yeah? Yet scarce did they mourn for that. Oh, you heartless bastard! She just drowned herself. And you're not sorry? You're a swine. That's what we think, but he's a poet, he knows better. For I knew she was safe in her own home then, and the past would appear again. Like, ah ha ha. Ah ha ha. It's like in that funny little cartoon about the Fixie-Kid, the new one, where in the end they like have this Fixie-Kid, little people who are hiding from most humans. They live in things and they fix things, so they call it the Fixie-Kid. Well, anyway, there's a professor, and he knows about them, he works with them. They help him and he helps them. And he has an assistant, and she doesn't know about them. She suspects something, but she doesn't know for sure. And that's one of the things that's happening there. Like, no, that's nothing. And, well, there's a whole story, a whole plot. Anyway, they end up on a boat, and they have some problems there, and it's solved. And there are two kids who also help the Fixie and the professor. And then they come back together, and the professor and the boy, and the professor is like, but how did you get here on the boat? The girl, not the boy. The boy was left in the laboratory. The girl, how did you get in here? Well, I came with your assistant on a motorbike. Oh, but did she see the Fixie-Kid? She can't. Oh no, what do we do? Oh, don't worry, she's fallen into the river. Whoa, but she can't swim, we need to save her. Oh no, it's too late. Oh, because the captain of another boat had saved her. So that's this kind of humor in here. No, I'm not sorry. Oh, you! Because she's a water rat. Yeah. So maybe one of the things he's trying to tell us that you should keep an open mind to what you're seeing and not make hasty judgments. Like if somebody goes into water, doesn't mean they're dead. Maybe it's a water rat. Yeah?
Don't jump after them, don't try to rescue them. Assume that they are water rats.
So nothing is what it says. It all keeps changing. Yeah, so the human logic is not applicable here. We are, as the readers, as normal, regular people, take it from the human logic perspective, where he takes it from a poet's perspective. And the logic of poetry does not always coincide with the normal human logic. So I guess that's what's happening here. Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else? Anything else?
How do you explain the heading, shelter?
Yeah, how do you explain the heading shelter? Maybe it's the narrator who sits in the shelter watching. So shelter is what we are looking for. Shelter is what we are looking for, and here, as you read to that bit, you may think, oh, shelter is death. No less than death. Death is your only shelter in that horrible, aggressive world of boisterous boys. But as you read to the end, you say, no, it's like a normal shelter. It's your home. Although, if then you combine the two ideas, then what do you get? Death is your only shelter and that's your home. And if you go into death, which is dark, deep waters, and you go head first into it, eventually, you do. Everybody does. It's not the end, because A, you'll be at home with your brothers and sisters, your brethren there, waiting for you. It's not horrible, it's not scary, it's fine, you're coming back home. And 2, she would appear again. It's not the end. Yeah. You go into the deep dark waters of death, but you do not disappear completely, you come back again. So maybe that's why we don't really believe that it's just a parody and laugh on romantic stuff. Because if you think about it, it is quite dark and deep. But only from the human perspective. From the fairy perspective, it's not dark. It's happy. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, then we can finish happily.
Yeah, splashing.
Splashing in the bath. As in bath, so below. Is that what they say? As in bath, so below. Is that what they say?